Today we are going to discuss the idea how religion is a mystification of alienation. I don't know whether you are aware of the most famous or the infamous statement of Karl Marx. Oftentimes it is quoted, religion is the opium of the people. Now, opium literally means something like a drug, something that helps you to escape from the painful situation. For example, if you have a toothache, what would you normally do? You would immediately take a painkiller. And what does the painkiller do to you? Does it heal the toothache? It does not. It helps you forget the pain for a while. It gives you relief from the pain. So it makes you comfortable. So that is what exactly what the opium does. Opium is a drug which helps you to forget the pain. Not only the physical pain, but also the other suffering that you may have. So people who take drugs often escape from the harsh reality of life, because the reality is so difficult to cope with, to live. So in order to escape from this, they take some opium, they go into some trance, and they forget for a while the pain they have, the misery they have, the suffering they have. So that is the meaning of religion, is the opium of people. Now, one of the difficulties is oftentimes people quote Karl Marx out of his context. So people probably know very little and they understand very little, and they are only familiar with this context, in this particular aphorism, in this particular statement. Now, this I think is a distorted impression about what Marx actually thought about religion and religious belief. The truth is, Marx is critical of religion. As I told you, that is not his primary focus. His primary focus is to critique the society and the economic mode in which the society functions. So in that context, obviously, the religion, as it mystifies the alienation, is critical of religion. But Marx is also in many ways sympathetic towards religion. So let us try and understand, or let us try and see what exactly he said about religion. It's a long quote, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the chat box so that you can see the quote for yourself. This is what Marx writes in his work Critique of Hegel's Philosophy of Right. Now, you remember Marx is a Hegelian because of the dialectics, the idea of contradiction that he has borrowed from Hegel. Now, it is in this book Marx addresses the question of religion. And this is a long quote I am going to read for you. Of course, you have it right in front of you as well. Religious distress is at the same time the expression of real distress and the protest against real distress. I repeat that sentence. Religious distress is at the same time the expression of real distress and the protest against real distress. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, just as it the spirit of a spiritless situation. It is the opium of the people. The abolition of religion as the illusory happiness of the people is required for their real happiness. The demand to give up the illusion about its condition is the demand to give up a condition which needs illusions. Now, if you see, there are two parts in this quote. And the first part, Marx is very sympathetic about religion. What is religious distress exactly? It is the expression of real distress. And it is also the protest against real distress. So religion is not just something that tries to brush itself aside from the people's distress. It takes the people's distress seriously and gives expression to it in its own ways. as part of the religious distress. But it also protests against the real distress. It is making a statement. It is saying that this distress is unacceptable. But it does it in a different way, it does it in a very religious way. So that is very sympathetic understanding of religion. Marx is very kind about the statements that he makes about religion. And he continues with the same spirit, same perspective. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed. The sigh is something like a deep breath that you take when you are really in deep sorrow. A deep breath when you take, it helps you to get relieved of your sorrow, of your stressful condition. So religion does this function. It helps you, particularly when you are in an oppressed situation, when you are an oppressed creature. Religion provides you solace, comfort. That explains why there are many people who are deeply oppressed, who are into a difficult situation, constantly seek religion, because that helps them to get some sort of solace and comfort. Not only that, religion is the heart of a heartless world. In a world where there is no heart, at least religion serves as a heart. The heart is a life-fulfilling function. So the world has no spirit, no life. It's a spiritless situation where religion tries to breathe life into that situation. When there is despair, when there is hopelessness, when there is utter failure and dismay, when there is practically nothing left of life, nothing of heart is available anymore, religion serves the function of heart. It keeps the life beat going. Then he makes a slight change from the perspective when he begins to say, it is the opium of the people. All these things are good. But what does all these things? It is exactly the opium which does. Religion helps you to somehow forget your pain. It is by forgetting the pain, it makes you protest against your real distress. It gives life in a lifeless world. It serves as a heart, like a spirit. But this is what exactly a drug would do, a painkiller would do. It is the opium of the people. Now, what is wrong with the opium? When you have a toothache, well, obviously it is a temporary relief. You take a painkiller, opium, a drug, because you can forget the pain for a moment. But then the next day again the pain is going to appear. Now, the problem is not so much the pain. The problem is something else is causing the pain. What is causing the pain in the case of toothache? It is a decay, it's a cavity. Now, no matter how much painkiller you keep taking day in and day out, you are not healing the cavity. You are not addressing the fundamental problem of tooth decay. It doesn't matter as much as painkiller you want to take. And the more painkiller you take, in fact, though you may be able to make the pain numb for a moment, when it comes back even more acute. And you have to take even more painkiller. So the painkiller is not a solution, it is only a temporary relief. Now, what is the problem? People often think painkiller is a solution. So you keep taking painkiller and painkiller and painkiller. So you are not really getting the problem fixed. Now, only if you get the problem fixed, you will have real happiness. Otherwise, it is only a momentary happiness. Therefore, it is only illusory. The happiness that the religion gives you is only an illusory happiness. But if you want to have the real happiness, then you need to abolish this illusory happiness. In other words, you have to stop taking drugs. When you feel the acute pain, then you are not going to just leave it like that. You are going to get the problem fixed. You want to address the problem. You are not going to now run away from the problem. Hence, there is only one condition. The condition is that you give up the illusion. And that is, also that implies that you need to give up a condition which needs illusions. So religion is fundamentally illusion, and it gives you illusory happiness, and that is the reason you need to give up religion. Now, so this is a very complex idea that Marx is suggesting, not just merely criticizing religion, in the passing by saying religion is the opium of the people. So there is a whole lot of idea that he says, yes, religion is helpful, but it is so helpful that we forget that the problem still remains to be addressed. That is where the trouble is. So Marx is therefore saying the purpose, what religion does is it keeps creating illusory fantasies for the poor. Now, the actual economic realities does not provide people true happiness in this life. It keeps them in a very oppressed situation. It keeps them alienated. They are in misery. The workers are alienated from their own, product, what they produce, from the activity of production, from their own human identity, and worse still, from other human beings. So, utter misery, this is the most miserable condition one can live. So, that's a true economic reality in which one finds oneself. But then, how does religion try to make up for this? It says, fine, this is okay, because what you will do is you will find true happiness in the next life, in the afterlife, in the eternal life. So somehow religion is trying to create an illusory fantasy for the poor. So they just begin to accept the condition in which they live, the economic oppression in which they find themselves. So Marx, while is sympathetic, religion provides solace, just as opiate-based drugs give you relief when you are in a pain, when you are injured. But again, Marx is also equally critical. In any case, as I told you, this particular quote is not as negative as oftentimes portrayed, at least about religion. So, as I explained to you how this is also a sigh of the oppressed creature and heart of the heartless world. So we find in a society which is heartless, where religion provides us a bit of solace. So Marx gives a partial validation of religion. Now, religion is a set of ideas and expressions of material realities. So, religion helps you to deal with the symptom of a disease and not the disease itself. Now, here the symptom of the disease is the real oppression. The disease is the real oppression. The symptom is obviously the suffering they undergo because of the oppression. So, you cannot just only address the symptom without addressing the disease itself. In other words, religion may provide heart to a heartless world, but it fails. It does not really do it in the long term. So it helps you to forget your pain and suffering, but it does not alleviate completely your pain and suffering. So religion does not fix the underlying causes of people's pain and suffering. It helps them to forget, and they even forget why they are suffering. So they keep looking forward to an imaginary future where the pain will cease to exist. Now the worst part is, sometimes this very drug, this very opium, is addressed by the same oppressors who are responsible for people's pain and suffering in the first place. That's the worst part. So humans need to create for him a society in which economic conditions that causes pain and suffering should be eradicated. And therefore there is no need for a soothing drug like religion. Once such situation arises, when you once address your cavity issue, you don't need a painkiller anymore. You are healed. So also if the society is healed, if this oppressing economic conditions are eradicated, then you don't need any such thing like religion to soothe your pain. Now, so in spite of obvious dislike and anger towards religion, Marx never made religion an enemy of workers or communists. So that is later Marxists have made religion something like an enemy to them. Marx never made it. So the 20th century communists perhaps have twisted it and made religion a kind of enemy to the working class. If Marx had regarded religion as a serious enemy, he would have devoted more time to it in his writings, but he did not. Instead, he focused on economic and political structures that serve to oppress people. So this is for the very reason there are many Christians who adopted Marxian principles, because they thought we can be Marxist and yet can be sympathetic towards religion. For example, we have this famous person called Karl Kautsky. He has a book by name Foundations of Christianity. And in this book, Foundations of Christianity, he wrote that early Christians, in fact, were in some respects facilitated a proletarian revolution against the privileged Roman oppressors. If you study the history of Christianity, you will find not only in the Western Rome, but also what is known as the Eastern Rome at that time, as they had the Roman Empire, which was vast. It was extending up to Constantinople, which was part of the Roman Empire. We had series of such revolution that took place thanks to the Christians at that time. Because the Christians were enormously, whether we like it or not, they were slaves. Whether it is in the Western Rome or in the Eastern Rome. And the slaves could no longer accept the oppression that was unleashed on them. And therefore, in the name of their faith, they did kind of revolted against their oppressors. Sometimes in an exaggerated way, obviously, a lot of violence that was involved. But the point is not so much about to look at that dark side of the revolution, but to say that it is possible that you be Christian and you can be revolutionary. So this is what exactly we witnessed in Latin America. Catholic theologians used many of the categories of Marx to frame their critique of economic injustice. And that is what led to what came to be known as liberation theology. So at one point in time, this liberation theology was much popular. Even today in some circles it is, though it is not so popular as it used to be in the 80s. But thanks to the theologians in countries of Latin America, we have great people like, for example, Archbishop Romero himself and many others who worked at that time, or Archbishop Helder Camara. These are the great personalities who lived their faith by integrating some of the categories of Marx, thus creating a theology of liberation, not only just creating but living by that. So therefore, Marx's relationship with his ideas about religion are far more complex than we can realize. Obviously, the analysis of Marx about religion may not be perfect. It has certain flaws. But in spite of these flaws, it is worth taking his perspective seriously. At least it is important to pay attention to the fact how he sees religion as so much part of a society. It is not independent of the society. Religion is a reflection or even a creation of other fundamental things in the society like economy. Of course, this is not the only way in which we can look at religion. but it does give us some interesting illumination on the social roles that religion plays. So religion cannot simply detach itself from the society. Religion is part and parcel of the society and the social conditions, which include the economic conditions, which include the political conditions of a particular time. Now, let us also remember, Marx advocated the need for emancipation of religion. Why? It is because there is only one condition that you can get real happiness. That is, somehow you need to abolish that which gives you illusory happiness. So this illusory happiness is a kind of fantasy, not a real happiness. When you are deprived of something, you begin to daydream about it. You are happy for a while. Some people keep sitting and dreaming about the positions they will get, etc., which is not real. Or if you are, a person struggling to make your way through promotions and getting the post that you want and therefore make money, you just sit and just keep daydreaming, but that is only a fantasy. Or a child who does not afford to buy a playing toy keeps dreaming about it. It feels good about it, obviously, but it's only a fantasy. Now, as long as you remain in that fantasy, you're not going to go after what you think will give you real happiness. So therefore, it is important you give up that fantasy. Then you shall see what are the conditions that prevent you from attaining what you want. Then you will strive for them. So Marx makes an analogy of religion to flowers. But they are not real flowers, but fake ones. Flowers somehow elate our hearts and mind. When you look at flowers in the garden, obviously we are very happy. But what we look at is not real flowers, but fake flowers. Worse still, these flowers are not in your garden. These flowers are decorating the chains that bind you to oppression. It's like you are tied by chain, your hands are tied, your feet are tied by chain, and then there are nice fake flowers that decorate the chain. So what do? You look at the flower and say, oh, how nice, wonderful. But what is beneath that flower are chains. Now what does the flower do? The fake flower, it prevents you from seeing the real chains that bind you to oppression. And unless and otherwise you pluck those fake flowers, you cannot see the chains that oppress you. Now religion is like those fake flowers. It somehow creates an illusion, and through this illusion it also justifies and keeps giving excuses for the functioning of the society as it does today. It always gives some reason, some explanation. Fine, don't worry, you suffer now, it will be fine, in your afterlife. All kinds of things, nice. It keeps you feel good. But fundamentally, why should I suffer? Why should some human beings make me suffer miserably? I would like to be happy like everybody else. So, capitalism, as long as it takes our productive labor and alienates us from its labor value, religion takes our ideals and aspirations and alienates us from them, our ideals and aspirations to be happy, and projecting them onto an alien and unknowable being called God. That is how Marx puts it. Marx has three reasons for disliking religion. He at least enumerates three reasons why religion cannot be accepted as it is. First, religion is irrational. Why it is irrational? It cannot go with reason anyway whatsoever, because religion is a delusion. Now, that is Stephen Hawking who said exactly the same thing, the well-celebrated scientist of our time, Hawkins. He said that religion is a delusion, and it's a worship of appearances that avoids recognizing underlying reality. So the delusion happens because it somehow makes you avoid the underlying reality. You don't see it, you don't get to see it. Second reason why Marx dislikes religion is it negates all that is dignified in a human being by rendering the human being more servile, more as a slave, and therefore more amenable to accepting the existing status quo. The status quo or status quo is, there is an oppression, just embrace it. Live your life in that way. You are a slave, yes, but be happy in being a slave and accept it. So accept the reality as it is. So by suggesting that, somehow indirectly religion negates that is dignified in human being. So in fact, in his preface to the doctoral dissertation, Marx adopted as his motto the words of the Greek hero Prometheus. How many of you know about this Greek hero Prometheus? It's of course a myth, it's a story, but it's interesting. You could later Google and find out. Prometheus was supposed to have stolen light from the gods to enlighten human beings. Anyway, who defied gods to bring fire to humanity, fire or light to humanity. So the famous motto, based on the words of Greek hero Prometheus, as Marx says, is, I hate all gods. They do not recognize human person's self-consciousness as the highest divinity. So this is the quote from the Greek hero Prometheus. I hate all gods. They do not recognize human person's self-consciousness as the highest divinity. Now, technically what is implied is human beings somehow are reduced to servitude, and you have to just embrace that. Now this is very similar to the idea of Nietzsche. We are not going to discuss Nietzsche, but if you know about Nietzsche, you will be able to connect the idea. The third reason why Marx dislikes religion is hypocritical. Now this is the very serious challenge that Marx raises against religion, and it is worth considering this critique in particular. Religion professes valuable principles, very true, but it ends up siding with the oppressors. For example, Jesus advocated helping the poor, but what did the Christian church do? It merged with the oppressive Roman state, taking part in the enslavement of people for centuries. And this is hypocritical. On the one hand, you say, well, God of the poor, church of the poor, God loves you, but you always join hands with the very people who would oppress them and enslave them. There are other examples. For example, in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church always preached about heaven, and some of us continue to do that. Seek you first the kingdom of God. It's always the heaven. Let your eyes be fixed. But what did the Catholic Church do? It acquired as much as material property and power as possible. The preaching is only for others. Well, you have to be poor, you have to learn to be poor, you have to, only seek the heavenly things, not the material things. But we end up acquiring property and power as much as possible. Of course, we have nice reasons to say why we are acquiring all this property. That is another issue. Again, even Martin Luther, who was supposed to be bringing a renewal within the church, where of course it ended up creating a separate, church called Lutheranism. He preached about the ability of each individual, every individual, can relate to God directly. You can read the Bible and then God speaks to you directly, and then you can communicate with Him. You don't need a mediator. All these nice things he said. But in his own life, Martin Luther supported aristocratic rulers who were against the peasants. The peasants were fighting against the farming class, were fighting against the aristocrats for economic justice and social justice. Martin Luther obviously sided with the aristocrats. So, according to Marx, this form of Christianity, which is very hypocritical, is in fact a production of new economic forces as early capitalism developed. New economic realities required a new religious superstructure by which it could be justified and defended. And that is how today Christianity has come to be. Of course, this is Marx. It's worth considering some of the critiques that he is placing before us, though it is painful, though sometimes it is one-sided, it's not fully right, there are flaws, we agree, but we cannot totally ignore the criticism that he makes against religion. Now, this is his general idea about religion, how religion is a mystification of alienation, how it mystifies the alienation. The mystification is a process by which you try to defend the very alienation, you try to justify the alienation, it tries to create an aura against it and somehow make you feel good about that, the very alienation which you want to fight against. Now, let us look at critically look at Marx himself. Okay. So, though we have tried to understand from his point of view what he is saying, it may be good to critically look at Marx, the idea of Marx. Negatively, we can say Marx did not spend much time looking at religion in general. He focused on the religion with which he was most familiar. The religion with which he was most familiar was the Judeo-Christian religion. He was born a Jew, of course, he grew up in a Christian country with a Christian ambience. That is what he was familiar with. Therefore, it may be important to ask whether all the criticism and the comments that he made about religion would hold true for every religion. For example, there are religions which would not be holding the similar doctrines like happy afterlife. And they may have very different, radically different approach in their teaching. So, for example, in the ancient Greece and Rome, the question of happy afterlife was only meant for heroes. The commoners can only look forward to a shadow of earthly existence. So, therefore, it is very unsound to have your working knowledge of a particular religion at a given point in time, the way it functions, and to draw conclusion based on your subjective experience. So, but this cannot be the right scientific approach. The second criticism that we can say about Marx is the materialized interpretation Marx made about religion is one-sided. What do we mean by materialized interpretation of religion? For Marx, religion is fully determined by material and economic conditions, depending on what kind of your economic reality is. That is how your religion will be built on that. Now, so what happens with this kind of idea is not only is nothing else fundamental to influence religion, but the influence cannot be the other way about. In other words, your economy determines your religion, your religious views, but it is not your religious views that would determine your economic reality. if this cannot be entirely true. In fact, there are many other sociologists which argue the other way. Depending on what kind of religion you follow, what kind of religious values you undertake, you can create economic realities very differently for you, depending on the religious values that you adopt. That was exactly the idea of Max Weber, whom we will be discussing in the next lecture. Max Weber exactly said the other thing, other way about. It's not so much the economic reality that determines your religious adherence. It is your religious adherence that determines the economic reality. It is just the opposite. So, but when we come to Max Weber, we shall discuss more in detail about that. The third negative aspect is Marx has spoken about many different kinds of alienation. But all these alienations are related to the economic factors. But there are also human beings who suffer from other forms of alienation, like guilt, for example. People do suffer from guilt. They feel alienated from their own self. The way Marx explains the idea of alienation is not comprehensive. Somehow he ignores certain forms of alienation, and therefore his understanding of alienation again is very limited. However, there are certain things that we can learn from Marx. Whether we accept with regard to his ideas on religion or not, we should at least recognize that he provided an invaluable service by forcing us to take a hard look at the social web in which religion occurs. It is almost impossible to study religion without exploring its ties to various social and economic forces. In other words, people's spiritual lives cannot be assumed independently of their material lives. So there is a deep connection between your religion and your socio-economic conditions of life. This he has made us to realize. Whether we fully agree with him or not, we cannot ignore this. The second important contribution of Marx is that the basic determining factor of human history is economics. So human beings are not motivated by grand ideas right from the beginning, but human beings were instead motivated by material concerns like the need to eat and survive. That is a basic premise of materialist view of history. So it is not that you begin with great ideas. You begin with what makes you survive. You must first eat. You must survive. Then only you can think of other great ideas. So the determining factor of human history is economics. I mean, this is an awareness that Marx has created for us. So it's much easy to speak about poverty, but perhaps we should, try that doing without eating for a few days about poverty and see whether you can succeed in having great lofty ideals about poverty. Probably not. Because even to think about great lofty ideals about poverty, you must first eat. Otherwise you cannot have any such thinking whatsoever. Thirdly, Marx had a special word for all of the work that goes into developing those institutions. If not for Marx, today we would not be using this word very dearly in all our analysis. The word he used very, very frequently is ideology. Now note, this word ideology is very different from idea. Now idea means that which emerges from our thinking, something new, something that has can be inspirational, something that can influence the way we do things and so on. Ideology, on the other hand, is something that masks the reality. Ideology is, instead of capturing the truth, it hides the truth. Now, in other words, ideologies are expressions, according to Marx, of class interest and class conflict. So ideologies are often things that are said in a very good way, but you give good reasons, but they are not the real reasons. The real reasons are something else. During the discussion, I will give a lot of examples how we ourselves have a lot of ideologies. So the ideologies normally help you to maintain the current status quo. Well, this is not surprising because those in power always wish to justify and maintain that power. So ideology is something that keeps justifying the power structure to maintain it by masking the reality. It doesn't present you the reality as it is, but it keeps masking it, hiding it, so that it keeps justifying and maintaining the power. And therefore, we are very indebted to Marx for this term ideology. And today, most social theorists use this term ideology or make use of this concept in the analysis that they make. Lastly, Marx is well known for his idea of action. So the emphasis is on action, not merely about understanding or thinking about it. Or in the words of Marx himself, in his famous thesis on Feuerbach, Marx has said this. I quote him: "The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it." Now, let us take a few questions that Marx raises for us today. Marx says religion gives illusory happiness instead of real happiness. The question that comes to us inevitably is, why does religion keep creating illusory happiness? Ask yourself this question: why does religion keep creating illusory happiness and not real happiness? Is it not capable of giving real happiness? Second question: is there any possibility for us to claim to be the church, the poor church for the poor, the church which takes the side of the poor? History shows otherwise. The church was always, it has been, and it is on the side of the rich. The church has never been on the side of the poor. I mean, at least we say that, but in the various ways in what we do, it is on the side of the rich. There are a few exceptions here and there. We may be kind of doing something, some charity, but that doesn't make us this, the church of the poor. So that seems to be a far-fetched dream, and it still seems to remain a dream. What do you think about it? Thirdly, realization of human freedom seems to be incompatible with belief in God. In other words, as long as you keep believing in God, accepting what religion teaches you, you will never see that you are oppressed, you are not going to strive for freedom, and you are not going to get it. Now, this is how Marx understands the role of religion. Is it possible for us to think of God who is compatible with material happiness of human being? Because basically human being is oriented towards material. So it's fine. We can have a certain pursuit of interest in your life, have material goodness, and that is perfectly fine with the way we understand God. So can we think of that within our framework of faith? This is for you to reflect about it. If you have some good reflection, you are welcome to share. With this, I end this lecture. We shall now open up for discussion.